What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Bleep Bloop podcast. If this is your first time listening, I want to welcome you. This is a gaming podcast, but unlike the ones where we talk about the latest news and review the games, I'm bringing you a series of topics, a list of topics that I enjoy talking about. I think other people might enjoy as well, okay? So in any case, if this is your first time listening, I am Retro Lag, all right? And if you are a return listener, I want to say thank you for your continued support. On this episode, we are going to talk about, I'm going to talk about why indie games are the best. So, when I first started playing newer games, it was a lot of AAA titles. I mean, for a while, I would primarily just play first-person shooters. Of course, I was a bullet sponge, a bullet magnet, and I would rage quite often. And then I started playing, I really enjoyed playing third-person games. I thought those were always fun. And then somewhere along the way, I started to just dive into indie games. One of the first games was Celeste, and then another game I really dove deep into was Blasphemous. And since then, I've played a whole series of games. I've played all kinds of platformers, Metroidvanias, hack and slash, bullet hell games, and I could just keep going on and on. And I think the most fun I had when I was playing a lot of indie games was when I was part of this collective of gamers, the Indie Games Collective. And essentially what it was a group of content creators that had access to a ton of indie games from indie developers, indie publishers, and they would have first access on them. We would get codes pretty often, pretty frequently, and we would create the content. Some people were Steam curators, so they would go do the reviews and they would have a list of the games. And other people would focus on just YouTube videos. Some people focused on podcasts as well as live streams, and that's where I really just dove into a ton of games. And there are so many indie games that just do not get recognized, and they may not be the most graphically amazing games, but in terms of story, in terms of sound, in terms of game mechanics, they're amazing. And I would even venture to say that some of the games that I've played can actually go head to head with some of these AAA titles that everybody will tout as being the next best thing, only to be disappointed when it comes out. The other reason I think that indie games are the best is because they're always coming out. And I touched on this before. I talked about this when I was talking about why we need more game demos. And one of the things that I pointed out was that indie developers almost always release a demo whenever Twitch, when Steam will host like an event. Sometimes it's in partnership, sometimes it's just Steam's events themselves. But usually Steam Next Fest, and there's another one that pops up quite often. That's where you just see a ton of demos from all these indie developers. And I think that is great, because these small companies are giving you front door access to their game. And a lot of times the games are practically completed. They just, obviously they're not letting you get the whole game. Some do, some let you go into, they'll go into early access and you have access to the game pretty quick. And then some, they just release a demo because they just want people to play the game. So I think that's another thing that I really enjoy. But I think one of the biggest things that I love about indie games is when I have had the chance, being able to work with the indie developers or the publishers or the marketing team, and it's just direct connection. Now there are some of the studios, some of the publishers that make it a little bit more difficult to reach out to them, and I understand, you can't give everybody a code to your games, because you got to make a profit, and there's a baseline that you don't, or a threshold you don't want to go past. So I totally get that. But I feel like if a lot more indie studios, indie publishers really reached out to those people that focus on an indie niche or the indie games as a whole, I think that would really set a precedence for the popularity of a lot of these games. Because I've even heard that some indie publishers and indie studios say that they just don't have enough visibility for their game, and that's what they really need. So for somebody like me, I absolutely have no problem pushing your game as long as it's a Metroidvania or a platformer. Just saying. Okay, and a point and click. But I digress. But yeah, I mean, in all seriousness, that's one little thing that's not even a big deal to me. I just enjoy having the ability to play these games. I think they're so dope. I think they're amazing. And I think other people, should get out there and play them. I mean, like I said, there are so many games that I've played. Into the Pit, They Always Run, Super Mambo Quest, The Legend of Tianding, The Dark Side Detective, Grime, Schmutznik, which was actually a clay animation style game. Like everything was done with clay. It was dope. Keep in Mind Remastered, Kingdom 2 Crowns, Behind the Frame, Trek to Yomi. There's just so many games. I could go on and on and on, and part of the reason why I started doing reaction trailers was because of indie games. I wanted to promote and push platformers. I wanted to push Metroidvanias. I wanted to push, some point and clicks. I wanted to promote them and get them out in front of other people, because I know that if I enjoy them, there's other people that want to see these games and possibly play them. So I think if you don't like a subgenre or a genre of indie games, you're doing yourself a disservice, because there really are some great games. There's some great development teams. There's some great publishers out there, and they are almost always, if they got a good community managers or good marketing team, or social media managers that get out there and really connect with the community, then you have a good opportunity to be able to get a deep dive into these games. And sometimes I think that is a great segue as a reviewer, as somebody that reacts to something, or just being able to push out new game content. So that's why I think indie games are the best, just because, yeah, I love AAA titles. I love the graphics. I love the stories, and, they really are amazing. But to me, the indie game market is it's like the indie movie market or indie music. There's always a community of it that just enjoy it. And as a gamer, that's really where my heart is. And I think I also gotta say that I think a lot of that stems from the correlation that I provided from when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I only could play NES, and it was pixel graphics, side-scrolling platformers. You couldn't save, so you had to go just right through it or speed run it. So when I get to play these games now, there is that nostalgia that is attached to that, and it makes me appreciate it, because it kind of brings me back to a time that that where life was great, right? Didn't have no responsibilities, didn't have to worry about anything, and that's just really what I loved. So I really love that part of it, and I think that has a major influence on why I love indie games. So what do you think? Do you like indie games? Do you play them a lot? What genres do you like? And if you haven't, then maybe you should. I mean, if you consider yourself a gamer, you get out there and check some of those games out. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Once again, this is the Bleep Bloop podcast. My name is Retro Lag. You can find me on YouTube, Retro Plays Games. You can also check me out on Twitter at RetroLag, RETR0LAG, or at Real RetroLag. I also have a Retro Plays Games Twitter, so make sure you follow me there if you want to see all the latest and greatest content or just discussions about gaming, whatever the case may be. All right, make sure you share this with your friends. Leave me a review, 5 stars or better, baby. And I'll catch you on the next one. And like I always say, peace.